I'm starting to get pretty excited about free agency next week, and I'm not apologizing for it. I'll tell you why right now on FFT Express. All right, welcome everybody to FFT Express. I'm Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg, and we've been saying it all along, especially if T. Higgins, who got franchise tagged, does not end up getting traded. It's just not a great free agent class. He's not even a free agent, right? He got the franchise tag. So Chris Godwin coming off a major injury might be the best wide receiver. But Jamie, I'm getting excited because I do think there are some teams that could have some quarterback upgrades. And people don't love the quarterback free agent class, but look, great quarterbacks don't make it to free agency, right? So, Darnold could be an upgrade somewhere. Maybe Russell Wilson's an upgrade somewhere. Maybe Gardner Minshew's an upgrade somewhere. But it's very similar to last year's names, other than Cousins. Kind of an interesting quarterback class. I don't know that they are fantasy relevant, but they could help wide receivers.
They absolutely can. And look, 2 QB leagues, super flex leagues, a lot of people play in those formats, so they're going to be relevant. Darnold right now is considered the prize. It seems as if Fields is heading back to Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a headline-grabbing player for sure, wherever he ends up. Could be the Giants, could be the Titans, could be the Raiders, So most of these guys, though, aside from probably Darnold, but we know what his career has been like, are going to be bridge quarterbacks, whether it's to a rookie this year or to a rookie next year. These are not necessarily long-term answers at the position. Maybe Justin Fields could be, because he's still young enough. Did have an interesting season with the Steelers last year. Got them off to a 4-2 start. Was actually starting to look like a good fantasy quarterback, mostly with his rushing. Had 5 rushing touchdowns. So he's the one that could be somewhat, franchise altering. And then we'll see probably 1 or 2 of these guys. You mentioned Minshew. I wouldn't be surprised Daniel Jones in 2 spots. One, if Darnold leaves, does Minnesota lock him up to have sort of a veteran in place, knowing that McCarthy didn't play as a rookie coming off a knee injury? And so if McCarthy's injured, look what Kevin O'Connell just did with Darnold, who was considered to be a bust as an NFL quarterback, right? He made him into a pretty good quarterback. And then Indianapolis is another spot that I could see Daniel Jones going, because he's a similar type of quarterback to Anthony Richardson, right? A guy that's mobile, can run, can probably keep the offense, not necessarily changing things. And if Richardson struggles, does Jones sort of resurrect himself there? So those are 2 kind of destinations I see for Daniel Jones. But yes, it's a very, very not sexy free agent group, but sort of the quarterbacks. Darnold being the headliner isn't exactly the guy that you say, oh my God, I can't wait to see where Sam Darnold goes.
Yeah, Fields is actually so interesting because he's the one that probably makes your wide receivers worse for fantasy, but he could be the best quarterback to start for fantasy, because obviously we know why. He runs so much.
And again, I agree with you, but look what he did for DJ Moore. DJ Moore's best season.
Yeah, but just look what he did for George Pickens. I know DJ Moore is like the only example.
I don't disagree with you, but I also think it was like, we're going to handcuff Justin Fields, especially when they're winning games. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were extremely conservative.
Yep.
Extremely conservative. Pickens definitely took off a little bit when Russell Wilson.
Those first 6 games, he was great.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Okay, and Russell Wilson himself, obviously, is in this mix as a free agent quarterback, and he might be good for some pass catchers. Yeah, what else are you kind of looking forward to in free agency?
So the receivers are old. That's one thing. First off, if you want to, kind of a fun look at free agency, we're breaking down each position this week. So quarterbacks and running backs are on the site. Receivers will be up by the end of the day. And I put destinations just for fun. So I put Darnold with the Titans, for example. I put Rodgers with the Giants just to torture you. But some guys that could have some fun landing spots. One quarterback could be great for fantasy is Jameis Winston. Wherever he ends up, we know that he's a good fantasy quarterback by himself, and he's done great things for his receiving core. The running backs and the receivers are just kind of a who's who group of guys. When you're talking about maybe Najee Harris as the best running back who's available, Aaron Jones as one of the best running backs who's available, and he may not leave Minnesota. It's going to be surprising to see if any of these guys end up as featured rushers. So Najee, I think, is the one that could potentially still get a starting job somewhere, because 27 years old, I think 26, 27 years old, coming off 4,000-yard seasons. He doesn't fumble. He's got 3 fumbles in his career. He doesn't miss games. He showed that as a rookie he could be a pass catcher. So the two's my two favorite spots for him would be Denver and the Raiders. I think the Raiders make a lot of sense just because of what Pete Carroll likes. But Denver obviously is a good landing spot as well. And then for the receivers, again, I don't think Chris Godwin leaves, even though he didn't get the franchise tag. He wants to stay in Tampa Bay. They want to keep him. They probably get him a little bit cheaper just because of the injury. And then it's just a lot of old guys. Davante Adams is going to be 33 in December, 32 years old. Keenan Allen is already 33. You have every top receiver. I did 10 guys. By the time the season starts, they'll be 28 years old or older. So Marquise Brown turns 28 in the summer. Darius Slayton's already 28. Christian Kirk is going to be 29. So they're not young guys.
Darius Slayton, I don't think he'll ever, get the targets, but that's been a guy where like Malik Neighbors misses weeks 5 and 6, right? He gets 11 targets in both games.
I'll tell you who Darius Slayton is this year for me. He's Darnell Mooney. Get him on the right team, get him in the right quarterback, get him in the right system. Could be a good number 2 guy. Like I put him in Seattle as the replacement for those guys that are leaving because he's cheap. He'll be cheap. And then draft a guy. I can see something like that.
Yeah. And he scored 17.2 or more PPR fantasy points in each of his last 3 games in 2023. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Darius Slayton, right? This just tells you a lot about the free agent class. All right, we'll be right back. I'm going to take a quick break here and wrap things up with free agency on FFT Express. I did some research on Davante Adams yesterday, and if he ends up with Aaron Rodgers, just consider that he joins a team that already had Garrett Wilson, and he earned 10 targets per game with Aaron Rodgers. And if the two of them are on the same team, he might get 10 targets a game again. And I don't care how old or how bad he is. If he gets 10 targets a game, he's probably going to be a must-start player in half PPR. And I put the Patriots as a landing spot for him. And there was a stat that really shocked me. I don't think Davante Adams is going to be a deep ball. Like a few years ago with Derek Carr, he caught a lot of long touchdowns. I don't think that's him anymore. Right? He's going to be an intermediate area or even short area guy. Drake May led the NFL in completion percentage on pass attempts of 6 to 12 air yards, completed 74.2%. And I think he was second in yards per attempt on those throws. So maybe he'd be a good fit with Davante Adams. I thought that.
I think you picked the one team he will 1,000% not go to.
Green Bay?
No.
Who? The Patriots?
Yeah.
Why will he 1,000% not go there?
Who's their offense coordinator?
I don't even know who it is.
Josh McDaniels.
Oh, yeah, it is Josh McDaniels. That's right. Yeah, look, time heals all wounds.
Oh, money will heal all wounds if they pay him.
They have the most cap space.
But I don't think I think he wants, from all indications, he wants West Coast, and I don't think Rodgers is going to the Patriots. So I don't think he's going to go play with Josh McDaniels again.
Well, I was going to put Chargers, but I knew you were going to do that, so I didn't, because that's a good call, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Rams could certainly have some interest, if they want to get a veteran guy in there to replace Cooper Kupp. Wouldn't be surprising if San Francisco, if they move on from Brandon Ayuk and they get a trade partner, and now they have to replace not just Ayuk replace Ayuk and Samuel. So that's a team, I believe he's from that area. But yeah, I don't think he's going to play for Josh McDaniels.
And we're hoping that DK Metcalf gets traded. I mean, I'm kind of hoping he gets traded because I just think it'd be interesting. I sort of know DK Metcalf on Seattle. It's whatever. I would like to shake things up for him and for JSN's sake, because that could catapult JSN. I don't even know how
JSN would be a top 10 wide receiver. I mean, you brought up the stats. The targets were there for him, and he had a pretty solid season. You look at the way that he finished. I know week 17 wasn't great, but weeks 14, 15, and 16 fantasy playoffs for a lot of people, like superstar, 18 plus points or more in those 3 games. So that's the next domino to fall from a trade standpoint, and it could help Metcalf, like you said. So ends up, but like him to New England makes a lot of sense. A guy that can sort of be the alpha there. I don't think he is a true number 1 NFL wide receiver, but he could be for that team for what they're looking for and what they need, especially if they're just going to go the draft route. Have a lot of money to spend, have a young quarterback that could use a veteran presence. So I like that fit.
I think JSN might get overdrafted if you're calling him top 10, because this is a team that, I mean, they fired their offensive coordinator because they were throwing too much. And I mean, look, if he's the only guy, they don't really add anyone of significance, then it'd be hard not. Third round. Let's settle on third round. Third round, be great for JSN. All right.
I think he right now is going as a third round pick.
Yeah.
Like
I just don't know that I'd take him in the second. But you know my thing with slot rate, 77% slot rate is insanely high. 5th highest in the NFL, minimum 50 targets. You just can't find wide receivers that have huge years with that kind of slot rate. But I would hope they'd play him more on the outside. They did 2 years ago when Metcalf missed the game. They did not last year when Metcalf missed 2.
I don't think they have a choice if you're bringing in a whole new receiving core to only play him in the slot.
Yeah, I would hope so. All right, that's it for our free agency preview. We can't wait to break down all the moves next week on FFT Express. See you later.